episode 2 of the Tipiṭaka, or Tipiṭaka for you Sanskrit folks, recitals on Edward Reed's Buddhist Books podcast. I'd like to welcome our special guest for today, Chinese Buddha. Why not? I picked this one up when I was in Shanghai. Did you guys see that? Well, anyway, 2019, or you might call it the before times. I do love China. It's where my dad was born, Shanghai specifically. But the CCP, on the other hand, well, this isn't about geopolitics, so let's get to the reading, shall we? If this is your first time seeing me, go ahead and click here. That'll take you to a new playlist that I haven't created yet, but for you, I have. It's the Tipiṭaka playlist on Edward Reed's Buddhist Book podcast on my YouTube channel. For those of you listening on the podcast, hello. I know you can't see me, and I didn't point to anything because, well, that's how it works. Audio only. So yeah, that playlist will, you can go ahead and start with episode 1. I don't think there's anything else that I need to mention. I can go ahead and jump right in. All right. Hope you guys are enjoying the series. So we're in the middle of a quote. This is the Buddha talking. He has just talked about successfully breaking forth like a chick from the eggshell. Continuing, he's speaking to the Brahmin. Then, with the mind collected, clarified, purified, flawless, void of taints, grown soft and pliable, fixed and come to utter peace, I directed the mind toward the knowledge of the arising and passing hence of beings, so that with the purified Deva vision, surpassing that of men, I behold things. I know beings as they pass away or come to be mean, excellent, fair, foul, in a good born, in a bad born, it's B-O-U-R-N, like born identity. Anyway, according to their actions, and I think indeed, whose worthies, whose deeds were evil, whose speech was evil, whose thoughts were evil, abusers of the noble ones, holders of wrong views, incurring the actions of wrong views. These at the breakup of the body after death have arisen in the waste, the bad born, the abyss, hell. I wonder if that's just the British way of spelling born, what I know as B-O-R-N, being a California boy myself. Indeed, those good sirs, whose deeds were good, whose speech was good, whose thoughts were good, who did not abuse the noble ones, holding right views, incurring the actions of right views. These, at the breakup of the body after death, have arisen in the good born, the heaven world. Thus, with purified Deva vision surpassing that of men, do I behold beings. I know beings as they pass away and come to be mean, excellent, fair, foul, in a good born, in a bad born, according to their actions. This, Brahman, was the second knowledge attained by me in the middle watch of that night. Ignorance was dispelled, knowledge arose, darkness was dispelled, light arose, even as I abided, zealous, ardent, with a self that has striven. This, Brahman, my second successful breaking forth, like a chick from the eggshell. Just to be different. For those on the podcast, I'm drinking water instead of coffee. That's what that was about. Anyway, continuing. Then, with the mind collected, clarified, purified, flawless, void of taints, grown soft and pliable, fixed and come to utter peace. I directed the mind towards the knowledge of the destruction of the cankers. I knew as it really is. This is ill. This is the arising of ill. This is the stopping of ill. This is the course leading to the stopping of ill. I knew as it really is. These are the cankers. These are the arising of the cankers. This is the stopping of the cankers. This is the course leading to the stopping of the cankers. In me, thus knowing, thus seeing, my mind was freed from the canker of sexual pleasures. My mind was freed from the canker of becoming. My mind was freed from the canker of false views. My mind was freed from the canker of ignorance. And that's C-A-N-K-E-R. I'm not horribly pronouncing cancer. Anyway, don't think they had that word back then, though I'm sure they had the affliction. Probably called it something else. To me, freed, came knowledge. Through the freedom I knew, destroyed is rebirth. Lived is the Brahma life. Done is what was to be done. There is no beyond for this state of things. This was, Brahman, the third knowledge attained by me in the third watch of that night. Ignorance was dispelled. Knowledge arose. Darkness was dispelled. Light arose. Even as I abided zealous, ardent, with a self that has striven, this was, Brahman, my third successful breaking forth, like a chick from the eggshell. End quote. When he had spoken thus, the Brahman of Varanya said to the Lord, quote, the revered Gautama is the firstborn. The revered Gautama is the best. Wonderful, good Gautama. Wonderful, good Gautama. As a man, good Gautama, might act upright what had been overturned, or reveal what had been hidden, or tell a man who had gone astray which was his way, or bring a lamp into the darkness, so that those with eyes to see might see the things about them. Even so, good Gautama, in many a figure has the good Gautama made the Dhamma clear. He might be being sincere. I was assuming that he was going to be not. So my voice intonation might be inaccurate. Let's see. See where this goes. Continuing, the Brahmin replying to Lord Buddha. To the Lord Gautama, I go for refuge, and to Dhamma and to the order of monks. May the revered Gautama accept me as a lay follower. Wow. Okay. He converted the Brahmin. All right. Didn't see that coming. Yes. As one gone for refuge from this day forth while life lasts, may the revered Gautama consent to spend the reigns at Varanya together with the company of monks. End quote. The Lord consented by his silence. Then the Brahmin of Varanya, having gained the Lord's consent, rose from his seat, saluting the Lord, something like that, departed, keeping his right side towards him. At that time, Varanya was short of alms food. One word, alms food, which was difficult to obtain. It was suffering from famine, and food tickets were issued. nor was it easy to keep oneself going by gleaning or by favor. At that time, some horse dealers of Uttara Piṭaka, I assume that's, yes, northern India. I've been there. That was Uttarakhand. Anyway, back then it was Uttara Piṭaka, arrived at Rain's residence of Vinaya with 500 horses. In the horse rings, they prepared pata measure after pata measure of steamed grain for the monks. Thank you. Thank you. Some good honking. The monks, rising early and taking their bowls and robes, entered Vinaya for alms food. But being unable to obtain alms food, they went into the horse rings for alms food. Having brought the pata measures of steamed grain back to the park, they pounded them and ate them. The Venerable Ananda, having crushed a pata measure of the steamed grain on a stone, took it to the Lord, and the Lord ate it. Then the Lord heard the sound of the mortar. Now, Tathagatas, in parentheses, sometimes, end parentheses, ask knowing, and knowing, sometimes, parentheses, do not ask. They ask, knowing the right time, parentheses, to ask, and they ask, knowing the right time when not to ask, parentheses. Tathagatas ask about what belongs to the goal, not about what does not belong to the goal. The breaking of the bridge of the Tathagatas is among what does not belong to the goal. The enlightened ones, the lords, question the monks concerning two matters. Either, quote, shall we teach Dhamma, end quote, or, quote, shall we declare the course of training for the disciples, end quote. Then the Lord addressed the Venerable Ananda, saying, quote, what, Ananda, is this sound of a mortar? End quote. Then the Venerable Ananda told this matter to the Lord. Quote, it is good, Ananda. Ananda, those who come after will disdain the meaty boiled rice and the gruel won by you, who are men indeed. End quote. Then the Venerable Moggallana the Great came up to the Lord, and having come up, he greeted the Lord and sat down to one side. As he was sitting to one side, the Venerable Moggallana the Great spoke thus to the Lord, quote, at present, Lord, Vinaya is short of alms food, which is difficult to obtain. It is suffering from a famine, and food tickets are being issued. Nor is it easy to keep oneself going by gleaning or by favor. Lord, the under surface of this great earth is fertile, even as flawless honeycomb. Pretty fertile. Good it were, Lord, if I were to invert the earth, so that the monks might enjoy the nutritive essence of the water plants. End quote. Quote, but what will you do with those creatures, Moggallana, who are supported by the earth? End quote. Quote, Lord, I will make out of my hands broad, like the great earth, and I will make those creatures who are supported by the earth pass over thence. Then with the other hand, I will invert the earth. End quote. Quote, take care, Moggallana. Please do not invert the earth, or beings may meet with derangement. End quote. For those who were here for the Jainism portion, this might sound familiar from some of those teachings. Anyway, quote, it is well, Lord, that the whole order of monks may go to Uttarakuru for alms. End quote. Quote, take care, Moggallana. Moggallana, let not the going of the whole order of monks to Uttarakuru for alms seem good to you. End quote. Now, while the Venerable Shariputra had gone into seclusion for meditation, this thought arose in his mind. Quote, "Of which enlightened ones, of which lords did the Brahma life not last long? Of which enlightened ones, of which lords did the Brahma life last long?" End quote. Then the Venerable Shariputra, rising up at evening time from his meditation, came up to the Lord, and, having come up, he greeted the Lord and sat down to one side. As he was sitting to one side, the Venerable Shariputra spoke thus to the Lord. Quote, "Now, Lord, as I was in seclusion for meditation, this thought arose in my mind, of which enlightened ones lasts long?" Quote, Shariputra, "While Vipassin was Lord, when Sikhin was Lord, and while Vesabu was Lord, the Brahma life did not last long. Shariputra, while Kaku Sanda was Lord, and while Konagamana was Lord, and while Kassapa was Lord, Kasyapa, the Brahma life lasted long." Quote, "And what, Lord, is the cause?" This is Shariputra. "What the reason? Why, when Vipassin was Lord, and when Sikhin was Lord, and when Vesabu was Lord, the Brahma life did not last long?" End quote. Buddha replies, quote, "Shariputra, the Lord Vipassin and the Lord Sikhin and the Lord Vesabu were idle in preaching Dhamma in detail to the disciples, and these had little of the suttas in prose or in prose and verse. The expositions, the songs, the verses of uplift, the quotations, the jatakas, the miracles, the miscellanies. The course of training for the disciples was not made known. The Patimokkha was not appointed. After the disappearance of the enlightened ones, these lords, after the disappearance of the disciples enlightened under these enlightened ones, those last disciples of various names, of various clans, of various social strata, who had gone forth from various families, caused this Brahma life rapidly to disappear. It is as if, Shariputra, various flowers, loose on a flat piece of wood, not tied together by a thread, are scattered about, whirled about, and destroyed by the wind. What is the cause? Inasmuch as they are not held together by a thread, even so, Shariputra, at the disappearance of these enlightened ones, these lords, at the disappearance of the disciples enlightened under these enlightened ones, these last disciples of various names, various clans, of various social strata, who had gone forth from various families, caused this Brahma life rapidly to disappear. And these lords were untiring in exhorting the disciples, for they read their minds with their own. Formerly, Shariputra, the Lord Vesabu perfected, all enlightened one, in a certain awe-inspiring jungle thicket, exhorted and admonished a congregation of 1,000 monks, reading their minds with his own, and saying, "Apply the mind thus. You should not apply the mind thus. Pay attention thus. You should not pay attention thus. Forsake this. Having attained this, abide in it." Then, Shariputra, when these 1,000 monks had been exhorted and admonished by Vesabu, the Lord, perfected, all enlightened ones, their minds were freed from the cankers without grasping. Moreover, Shariputra, whoever not devoid of passion is in a terror of the awe-inspiring jungle thicket, and enters the jungle thicket. As a rule, his hair stands on end. This, Shariputra, is the cause. This is the reason why, when Vipassin was Lord, and when Sikhin was Lord, and when Vesabhu was Lord, the Brahma life did not last long. So he's saying, don't do that. Don't read your disciples' minds and tell them to micromanage their thoughts. Note to self. Right? Anyway. Quote, but what, Lord, is the cause? What the reason why when Kakusanda was Lord, and when Konagamana was Lord, and when Kasyapa was Lord, the Brahman life lasted long? End quote. The Buddha replies, quote, Shariputra, the Lord Kakusanda and the Lord Konagamana and the Lord Kasyapa were diligent in giving Dhamma in detail to the disciples, and these had much of the suttas in prose, or in prose and in verse, the expositions, the songs, the verses of uplift, the quotations, the jatakas, the miracles, the miscellaneous. The course of training for disciples was made known. The Patimokkha was appointed. At the disappearance of these enlightened ones, these lords, at the disappearance of the disciples who were enlightened under these enlightened ones, those last disciples of various names, of various clans, of various social strata, who had gone forth from various families, established the Brahma life for a very long time. It is as if, Shariputra, various flowers, loose on a piece of wood, well tied together by a thread, are not scattered about, or whirled about, or destroyed by the wind. What is the reason for this? They are well tied together by the thread. Even so, Shariputra, at the disappearance of these enlightened ones, these lords, at the disappearance of the disciples who were enlightened under these enlightened ones, those last disciples of various names, of various clans, of various social strata, who had gone forth from various families, established the Brahma life for a very long time. This, Shariputra, is the cause. This the reason why when Kakusanda was Lord, and when Konagamana was the Lord, and when Kasyapa was the Lord, we learned at one point that Kasyapa was the proper pronunciation. Kasyapa, I'll say, was the Lord. The Brahma life lasted long. End quote. Then the Venerable Shariputra, having risen from his seat, having arranged his outer robe over one shoulder, and held out his joined palms in salutation to the Lord. Not this, more like. Right. Said to the Lord, "It is the right time, Lord. It is the right time, Wellfarer, at which the Lord should make known the course of training for disciples, and should appoint the Patimokkha, in order that this Brahma life may persist and last long." End quote. The Buddha replies, quote, "Wait, Shariputra. Wait, Shariputra. The Tathagata will know the right time for that. The teacher does not make known, Shariputra, the course of training for disciples, or appoint the Patimokkha until some conditions causing the cankers appear here in the order. And as soon, Shariputra, as some conditions causing the cankers appear here in the order, then the teacher makes known the course of training for disciples. He appoints the Patimokkha in order to ward off those conditions causing cankers. Some conditions, Shariputra, causing the cankers do not so much as appear here in the order until the order has attained long standing. And as soon, Shariputra, as the order has attained long standing, then some conditions causing the cankers appear here in the order. Hence, the teacher makes known the course of training for disciples. He appoints the Patimokkha in order to ward off these conditions causing the cankers. Some conditions, Shariputra, causing the cankers, do not so much as appear here in the order until the order has attained full development. And as soon, Shariputra, as the order has attained full development, then some conditions causing the cankers appear here in the order. Hence, the teacher makes known the course of training for disciples. He appoints the patimokkha in order to ward off those conditions causing the cankers. Some conditions, Shariputra, causing the cankers, do not so much as appear here in the order until the order has attained the chief greatness of gain. And as soon, Shariputra, as the order has attained the chief greatness of gain, then some conditions causing the cankers appear here in the order. Hence, the teacher makes known the course of training for disciples. He appoints the patimokkha in order to ward off those conditions causing the cankers. Some conditions, Shariputra, causing the cankers, do not so much as appear here in the order until the order has attained great learning. And as soon, Shariputra, as the order has attained great learning, then some conditions causing the cankers appear here in the order. Hence, the teacher makes known the course of training for disciples, and appoints the patimokkha in order to ward off those conditions causing the cankers. Shariputra, the order of monks is devoid of immorality, devoid of danger, stainless, purified, based on the essential. Shariputra, the most backward of these 500 monks, is one who has entered the stream, not liable to be reborn in any state of woe, assured, bound for enlightenment. We'll close there. Very interesting. A few things come to mind, which I'll share. Earlier in a previous chapter, we had started reading the Lotus Sutra, and then in later researching, I learned that the author of the Lotus Sutra clearly knew of the previous, Buddhist texts and some of the sort of tropes or some of the patterns used. And I can see the way that Shariputra meditates and thinks of something and then comes and asks questions, and the Buddha instructs based on Shariputra's questions that came up while meditating. That, of course, happened in Lotus Sutra as well, but different things. A few other things. The readings of minds was present apparently in the beginning of the beginning. But he advised against it, or at least he advised against, overusing it, micromanaging. I see you're thinking this, don't think that way, think this way. But instead of that, to teach the Dharma continually, and to make it verses, to make it like music, which we know now. That's, it's much easier to remember the lyrics to your favorite song, from 20 years ago than it is to remember maybe the exact words of any of what I just said, for instance, or even something that you're trying to remember for a test. And a good mnemonic device for trying to remember something for a test is to make it into a rhyme, make it into a rap, make it into a lyrical poem. And of course, the Tipiṭaka and the teachings of the Buddha clearly, they went with this example. So right there at the beginning, the beginning of the beginning, this book, this first part of the first basket, he's explaining that the way to make the enlightenment last generation after generation is to have all these things written down and in prose and in lyrics and something to be chanted continually. So very interesting. Some aspects of that are being clarified for me. Click, click, click. That the chanting and the rhyming wasn't something that came later. It was something from the beginning. The idea, at least. There was some thought experiment in a college somewhere. I forget exactly, but I remember some of the details where the question was put forth: if there is an area where there's radioactivity that will cause horrible effects on anybody who lives there, any human, let's say, in a certain kilometer radius, perhaps, how can you leave a marker or something that will last for 10,000 years, that will be discernible, understandable to the humans living 10,000 years from now, that they should not live in that kilometer radius? And so people came up with this idea, that idea, carve it in stone, carve it in steel, carve it in this, carve it in that. And every idea that they came up with was knocked down, basically. And the best idea that they came up with is if they could genetically engineer a kind of cat that is perhaps normally black, but turns gray when they're exposed to that radiation. And then start a sort of religion or folktale or myth and make it rhyme and make a song and have everybody learn it. When the cat turns gray, stay away. And that was determined to be the best way to have that memory etched in stone, as it were, or to have that information last and to be passed for 10,000 years. And that was the Buddha's advice 2,600 years ago as well, it seems. Thank you all for going on this ride with me, and we'll pick up right where we left off next time. And we'll close with the prayer that my dad and I used to perform after our morning meditations. To the north and to the south, to the east and to the west, to the spirits of light among us and to the spirits below, we send out our reverent love and compassion. May all beings be happy. May all beings be serene. May all beings be in peace. Until next time.